screen just a.
There we go.
All right.
Hi, Geoff. Thanks for joining me today. I'd love to learn a little bit about you. Tell us about your background in baking and your work today.
Sure thing. So I'm the lead instructor here at the King Arthur Baking School out on the West Coast. We are in town of Burlington here, which often gets confused with Burlington, Vermont, but we're in Washington State, right attached to part of Washington State University, which is the Breadlab, which is primarily why the school is here, the only other school we have in the nation. And so, yeah, I started here about 5 years ago. Prior to that, I had been working in the industry. I worked at Columbia Seed Bakery. I worked at a restaurant called the Barking Frog, which is part of Willow's Lodge. Did a little bit at the bread farm here. Prior to that, I was in pastry school at the Seattle Culinary Academy, which is part of the Seattle Central Community College. Fantastic little program. And it was there that I learned that I wanted to instruct. So that's been the journey here to teaching in King Arthur started there. So prior to that, I actually worked in theater. So I'm a guy that came out of technical theater into pastry and baking, which is actually not as uncommon as people would think. So,
that's super interesting.
Yeah.
So you went from building things to building things, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's all about making a product.
Yeah.
Also kind of teaching is very much playing to an audience as well. So it's almost like another form of performance, but also getting your hands dirty during the performance, which is nice.
Great. Well, we're so grateful to you for teaching with the Guild, and we're so grateful to King Arthur for hosting us out there at the school. So tell us a little bit about the class, the whole story. What are you going to be teaching? Yeah. What are folks going to learn?
So my thoughts when I first was asked was what I want to do, and it seems like there's a lot of sourdough classes, which are fun, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. And I thought about what happened during the first part of the pandemic when the school shut down, and I was given the opportunity by King Arthur to bake for charity here at the school, just for donation. And so what I did was I took the Breadlab's Approachable Loaf, which you can find on their webpage, and I started with their actual recipe. And then we slowly started to run out of ingredients as we went, every day baking probably 50 loaves a day at least. And so I started substituting stuff in. I found over that 2-month period, I had a lot of fun adjusting breads to what ingredients I had on hand, seeing what flavors worked, what didn't. And so I thought maybe a class under that concept would be fun. We take some grains that are available to us that aren't really available to the public yet. They're from the Breadlab. We use them in place of normal white flour in recipes and see how they react. See how like a croissant will be under 100% whole wheat versus a white flour. So I'm thinking we'll probably fail on a couple things, which is fine. We learn a lot from failing. So I'm thinking of it more of a kind of an exploration together of grains here next door, which are very local, very fresh. We can look at the milling next door as well, and I'll kind of incorporate that into kind of a bread journey or flour journey, however you want to think about it. So
that sounds amazing. And I think as part of the class, the students will get to visit the lab, right? And,
yeah. We're going to bring someone from the lab in to talk as well for part of it. Maybe do a milling thing if we have time. We'll see. Demonstration. That's what I was
awesome.
Milling demonstration.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Are there any varietals coming out of there that you're particularly excited by? Or
yeah, actually, we've been playing. Earlier this year, we had a joint class with them, and then we played with a grain called Ruth. I don't know if these are their final names or names in development, but one's called Ruth. They've also been playing with what's called a climate blend, which is like a blend of all different wheats in one plot. And I think that the story behind that's pretty interesting. It's try to offset some negatives you get because our weather is all over the place. And so if you plant a variety, some might fail during super hot times, but some might thrive. And so you have a little protection against complete crop failure. So that's interesting things. I'm hoping to get some climate blend. I also like this really strong flour called the Sword, which is hoping to get as well. It all depends on what they have available for me to mill. So those are the three that I'm hoping to get in and compare it to King Arthur's whole wheat as well, just to kind of get a baseline. But there might be some other ones as well.
Nice.
I've loved, these are all kind of on the strength of bread flour-ish or all-purpose-ish. I do love a wheat called Cara wheat, which is a very soft wheat, but has really good flavor. I don't think there's any available to us though. But that is another grain I love. And I think that one is available in the market.
Yeah, you do work with pastry. Do you get to play with that a lot with the softer wheat?
Yeah, we actually discovered we have a pita recipe that King Arthur does, and there was one time we thought, well, let's get some Cara wheat from next door and we'll try that out. And it was like, holy cow, this is delicious.
Wow.
Like, we're going to see if we can steal Cara wheat from now on and use it. So, that was really, it made a world of difference flavor-wise, and I think texture-wise.
Yeah, that's all super exciting. I have one more question for you. What kind of tips, like what 2 or 3 tips would you give to the baker who wants to transition into using more whole grains? So either to convert white flour formulas in part or entirely to whole grain, or just add more whole grain products to their lineup. What are a couple things they should think about or look out for?
Sure. I think the first tip I have is manage your expectations. I think people have expectations that there's one type of, say, baguette, or one type of ciabatta, or one type of croissant, and it has to be huge and fluffy and light. But I also challenge that because I've had some wonderful whole wheat baguettes that have been fantastic. They're just different. And so I think first thing is manage your expectations, expect something different. As far as general rules, when you're working with whole wheat and versus white flour, you're including the bran, which is the most important thing you're fighting against, which has more absorbency. So you have to adjust your hydration. We also like to add, whenever we're using a bunch of whole wheat, a little bit of rest period to kind of soften that bran so it's not so deleterious to your gluten structure. So we do a little more soaking, more addition of water. So that's important hydration-wise. And I think the last thing is, just have fun with it. I think, you don't expect it to be the same, just kind of work with it. Use these to get an idea of where you're at. You can use your time and your eyeballs only so much, but your hands are really where you get a lot of information. And so constantly feel it and take good notes. So while you're feeling it, translate this feeling in your hands to results after the fact and say, well, it felt like this, but it came out a little flat. Maybe I reduced the hydration a little bit. So good notes, hydration, pay attention to hydration in particular, and manage your expectations.
That's great. I love that, manage your expectations. I mean, we all kind of maybe have this, we think we know what a baguette is. It doesn't have to be that, right? A baguette is a stick.
I constantly get students coming in saying, well, my bread doesn't have the huge big holes. And I would say, bread doesn't necessarily, I like bread with small crumbs so not all the mayo falls through and I'm making a sandwich.
Exactly.
It doesn't, success does not translate to big holes in my bread.
Yeah, well, there is the whole cult of the big crumb structure.
For hydration, big crumb.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Geoff, so much for all of that information.
You're welcome. Yeah. I'm hoping we get some students in and come play with me with the whole wheat. It'd be fun.
For sure, we will.